You are listening to Coast AM. Hello there. Connie Willis with you. I'll be here tomorrow night as well, so I hope you'll join me. I can't believe this is the last week of summer, right? I mean, I guess really, because next weekend is Labor Day weekend. I'm just now getting started for the summer, and now it's over. I don't no, we still got 6 more weeks of it, I think. I'm going to say that. I saw a shadow or didn't see a shadow, so that's where we're headed. That's what I'm going to do at least. So if you would like to join me anywhere else, please go to ConnieWillis.com. That's where you can find me. I've got some shows there, different types of shows you can be a part of. They are membership shows. We have a good time. You can become a cadet and join me for Connie After Dark. That is where you can have a drink with me or not. We just sit and talk and laugh and have a good time for a couple hours. And it ends up going to my other show, Blue Rock Talk, which is where we take you to live investigations of creepy hotspots that are active, and we're batting 1,000. We got some new members in, and I want to welcome you to become a Blue Rocker. So thanks so much for joining. Also, Connie Willis, the podcast, about to start back up again, and my book, Win Any Lottery, where our psychic spy that you guys all know pretty well, Lynn Buchanan, a good friend of mine, taught me years back how to use a pendulum to find winning numbers for lotteries. So I put the book out, and now you can, I kind of stopped it for a while there, brought it back out. So you can find it on Kindle at Win Any Lottery. Use that pendulum. If you're good with a pendulum, you're going to be able to pick winning numbers for the lottery. It's truly. And even if you don't hit the jackpot, you can become pretty consistent. Somebody said, have you won the jackpot? No. If those of you do use the pendulum, you still have to master it, right? You still have to master the pendulum. But a lot of times you're best when you just don't think about it, right? And I've consistently won money. So it's always nice to even just win your money back, right, with a ticket. So ConnieWillis.com is where you go, even just to sign up for the newsletter. And remember, if you do sign up for my newsletter, you're going to get a newsletter. So, I don't know why some people they get one and then they cancel. It's like, why did you subscribe? So just keep that in mind, ConnieWillis.com. All right. So, our guest tonight, I've talked to him several different times. Dr. Jeffrey Long, you've heard him here on Coast to Coast many times. He's been on my other shows too. One of the nicest people in the world and extremely intelligent, still has that sense of humor as well. And I enjoy talking to him so much. I talked to him earlier today, and, we're going to be talking about near-death experiences and the afterlife and the things that kind of go along with that. And a lot of people can go, yeah, I've heard that. I get it. Okay. All right. I know. But Jeff and I talked today, and we were like, let's take this somewhere else with it. And he's like, you know what? Good timing, Connie. So that's what we're going to be doing tonight, taking in other areas. And then later on, we'll have open lines. We'll see if he'll stick around for another hour and possibly talk with everybody. So he is a leading near-death experience researcher and New York Times bestselling author. He's the real deal. He founded the Near-Death Experience Research Foundation. That is the NDERF.org. So if you want to follow along, 2 other websites devoted to this. One is After Death Communication Research Foundation. So he did really well getting these website domains. I'm pretty good at that. And so he did pretty good getting this, adcrf.org. You can always go to our website at coasttocoastam.com, and you can also find these domains, and also Out of Body Experience Research Foundation, oberf.org. So the family of websites, they're the largest publicly accessible collection of exceptional human experiences of their type available. So let's go ahead and bring on Dr. Jeffrey Long, who, by the way, Jeffrey, you are like all about the largest of everything you do. So I just want to compliment you on that, and you deserve an award for always having the largest of everything that you do. Go big or go home, right?
I love it, Connie. Yeah, it's true. On the NDERF.org website, over 4,000 near-death experiences, exactly like you said, by far the largest publicly accessible collection of near-death experiences in the world, free to browse, dramatically informative and inspirational to anybody that just wants to check it out.
And also one that, I can say that people can find easily where they don't have to go, what was that? What was that acronym? The Institute, what is it? Spiritualityandhealth.org. That's a easy one to find too. And that can lead you to the other ones, can't it?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
we're all interconnected.
That's great. You got more websites than me. You go. You have done amazing work. You have seen, being an oncologist, you have seen people at the very end of their life leave this world and then literally come back and tell you about it.
Yeah, absolutely. You just defined a near-death experience right there, and that happens. It's an imminent life-threatening event, and then there's an experience at that time when they're so physically uncompromised, they're unconscious or clinically dead, shouldn't have any remembrance at all, and yet they do. And by the thousands, probably around the world, millions of people have had near-death experiences.
What was the longest that you've seen and the shortest that you've seen of people go on the other side and then come back? And were they distinctly, for sure, seeing something? The shortest amount of time and the longest amount?
Oh, that's great. Short's pretty easy. You can have people that have a car wreck and they're unconscious maybe just for seconds. And during that time, they can have a fairly brief near-death experience. They have a common first element out-of-body experience, their consciousness above their body, seeing the horrific wreck below them, and often people trying to resuscitate them, bring them back to life. So those are short ones, relatively short near-death experiences. Now, the really long ones, especially common if people are unconscious or approaching clinical death for a prolonged period of time, their time in their near-death experience can be defined as literally, it seems in terms of earthly time, hours. Although you always have to remember that in the afterlife that they describe in near-death experiences, essentially always those having those experiences say time is either radically different from earthly time or time simply doesn't exist on the other side.
But staying on this side, what is the longest someone has gone that they were out and then they came back?
Right. I had a child drowning in cold water, and that was about 45 minutes documented underwater. So that's, the combination of being a child and having a cold water and drowning, that sort of chills the body down and allows them to have a better chance of recovering. So that's sort of the life-threatening event circumstance where you've got the possibility of the longest, if you will, being in a coma, unconscious, and yet are able to be successfully resuscitated.
Okay, yeah, I was trying to figure out, if you are in that, if somebody's in that situation with you, you always see people doing CPR for a long time. It's like, when do you know to stop? When do you know that it's over? When some people come back, do they always come back because the doctors are trying or just boom on their own?
They can, at the end of a near-death experience, most of the time they simply spontaneously return to their physical body, but at other times there's a decision with other spiritual beings. And hey, Connie, this is fascinating. For people that have near-death experiences that make a decision, the great majority of time they don't want to leave that unearthly, if you will, beautiful heavenly realm. Think about it. Even though their whole earthly life that they've known, decades of earthly life, it is such an engrossing, strong sense of love, peace. And in a near-death experience in that unearthly realm, they actually feel that that's their real home. So very, very difficult for people that are in a near-death experience to choose to come back to their earthly life and all the pain, difficulties that we all know in our earthly life.
And what they're going to have to deal with, because if they were in a car accident or something, they're going to have to deal with, that much more pain than they had, just having to deal with the recovery.
Oh, absolutely. And some of the severe life-threatening events that cause a near-death experience, this can be lasting physical or mental debility depending on what got injured and severity of their accident or illness that led to the near-death experience. So Hats off to the heroic near-death experiencers who are doing that during their experience, make that very, very difficult decision, often with other beings with them, to return to their earthly life and fight to recover from that close brush with death.
You have seen so much, though. When did you what happened the first time? I know we're going to get into some deeper stuff, but I got to ask you some of these other things I've always wanted to ask you. When was the first time you started seeing this and you went, oh my goodness? I mean, did you start out like a regular doctor and that little scientific mind of, no, there's nothing on the other side? Were you ever that way in the first place? Because you may not have been, but when did you go, oh my gosh, they literally saw something, and when did you start getting it that there was something on the other side and it wasn't over?
Yeah, that's a great question, Connie. I was actually in my residency training over decades ago in my medical specialty, radiation oncology. And that was pre-internet era, so if we wanted to find an article about cancer, we had to go to the medical library and go through these huge bound volumes. So there I am flipping through the Journal of the American Medical Association, very prominent medical journal, and completely by accident found an article which had in its title, Near-Death Experience. And I paused. I'd never heard of such a thing. There was nothing in my medical training that suggested that was even possible. I mean, you're either alive or dead. So fascinated, I actually stopped looking for my cancer article and read the article and was immediately fascinated. I mean, Connie, how can you not be fascinated about wondering what happens after we die? Mm-hmm. So upon reading this article, I broke off and read the bibliography and looked up a few other articles and said, geez, if this is real, if near-death experiences are real, this changes my view of the universe. There's something big going on. And it was really about a year later, I had a college friend meet me, and his wife was there. And just over supper, his wife said that she had severe allergies, so bad, in fact, that she actually died, coded, heart stopped while she was under anesthesia. But she said it kind of funny, and my medical instincts kicked in, and I was ready to ask the dumbest question in my life. And here she was under anesthesia during getting surgery, and her heart stopped. It should be absolutely impossible, Connie, to have any remembrance at that time. But I was intrigued and asked her, well, did anything happen? And she said, why, yes. And I heard my first in-person near-death experience, and a very classic, detailed one, consciousness over the body, watching the operating room team frantically trying to resuscitate her, the racket that the EKG, measure of electrical heart activity, makes when it goes flat. It's got an alarm, obviously. Classic near-death experience through a tunnel, met deceased loved ones. But she didn't know what she had. She didn't know what happened. So I told her, well, gee, I read about that about a year ago. I think you had a near-death experience. So I was hooked and became determined to find out for myself from original source of evidence, question that was now burning in my mind, are near-death experiences for real?
Well, at one point, this was years and years and years ago, I remember seeing a documentary where they were talking about this, and they had actually set something up. I wonder if it was you. They set something up in the surgery rooms, I guess you'd call it, and they had like on top of some of the machines or some sort of file cabinet or some type of thing where there was like maybe an X or some sort of symbol where if anybody does come back, they could say they saw that. And the patient would have never known that that was up there in the first place. But when they mentioned it later after they came back, it was pretty astonishing. Was that something? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, absolutely. That's called placing a target. These are the so-called prospective near-death experience studies, and a usual methodology for these type of studies is actually like a laptop, and it flashes through different colors. It cycles through about 4 different colors, 4 different pictures, and 4 different words or phrases. So the thinking is, and that's all shown at random, so if people can have a near-death experience and that so-called out-of-body experience with consciousness apart from the body, and they place this the laptop with these target images basically face up, but away from where anybody in the operating room or emergency room can see, and ask people, that have a life-threatening event, if they had a near-death experience, and if they did you see the target? So there's been about 5 or 6 of those studies that have been done so far.
Were you a part of one of those?
No, I've certainly read about them. They're certainly my colleagues that have done these studies, but I haven't. I'd love to participate in that. I mean, that would just be absolutely fantastic. But
yeah, well, you know what? Tomorrow night, I got a guy on tomorrow night, Regan Forson, and he regresses people to go to heaven and then brings them back. And he said there's like 250 people that know how to do it in the world. They're looking for more people to be able to do it, but they say you can be on the other side, ask all the questions you want with everybody that you meet, and then come back. So you might want to be here tomorrow listening to that.
Oh, Connie, I'm all in for that show. That's
Isn't that cool?
Thanks for tipping me off about that. That would be super. Yeah, great.
Sleep in the morning, then come back. So I got a lot of people asking me today to ask you about animals. What do you know about animals in near-death experiences?
Great question. It's not at all unusual during a near-death experience to encounter a deceased human loved one. And in near-death experiences, they generally appear in these unearthly, if you will, heavenly realms. And it's a joyous reunion, even if the relationship was strained during earthly life. They're essentially always in picture-perfect health, that being these deceased humans, even if they died of chronic disfiguring illness or advanced age. And that's a very dramatic part of about 20% of near-death experiences describe that. But hey, Connie, this is the great news. As an animal lover, I have 2 dogs. They're over and over, we're seeing in near-death experience encounters with deceased beloved pets. Again, in that unearthly realm, and again, like the deceased human loved ones, here are their deceased beloved pets. Picture-perfect health, joyous reunion, a lot of interaction. I mean, you name it, I've seen it. Dogs, cats, birds, horses, deceased pets of all types. They're beautifully in the near-death experience, again, a very powerful message that which we love will ultimately be reunited with, whether it's your human beloved ones or your beloved pets.
And it's not just in your mind, like a lot of people want to look at and say, that's just your mind remembering things. You're saying, no, this is what's happening when you cross over.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had people encounter other people in near-death experiences that they didn't even know were dead or that were even in a life-threatening situation. And they may interact with them and sometimes even ask, well, why are you here? What's going on? Because, of course, virtually always in beings, humans that they knew are essentially always deceased when they're encountered in a near-death experience in that unearthly realm. So it's not just the mind. If you're encountering somebody that you didn't even know was dead, didn't even know was in a life crisis of their health or having an accident, and then only when they recover from their life-threatening event, check it out, they go, oh, wow, that person died prior to my near-death experience, and I didn't even know it. That's a classic example of information in near-death experiences that they absolutely could not have known other than having a near-death experience. It's not all in the mind. There's many, many lines of evidence like that for the reality of near-death experience.
Out-of-body experience, near-death experience. What's the difference?
An out-of-body experience occurs when you don't necessarily have to have a life-threatening event. People can induce them, often through meditation. They can occur spontaneously, often dramatically described. But like near-death experiences, it involves conscious perception, that being what you see, what you hear, apart from the physical body, typically above the physical body. And from that vantage point, they can either with spontaneous out-of-body experiences or near-death experience types, we'll call them OBEs. So for both types of experiences, very dramatic. You can see, hear events around the physical body. And interestingly, we have, in my research, literally scores of people who had that out-of-body experience and came back with observations. They saw things, they heard things far from their geographic body. And I mean, like, it could be over a mile. And they can see and hear things in great detail. And then when they check it out, after they are resuscitated and recover, almost invariably what they saw, what they heard, accurate down to the finest details.
Love it. Dr. Jeffrey Long is with us. I'm Connie Willis, and you are listening to Coast AM. Welcome back to Coast AM. Connie Willis here with you. Love for you to join me outside of here at Blue Rock Talk, Connie After Dark, Connie Willis, the podcast, and win any lottery book. Yeah, and then let me know when you hit the jackpot, okay? Just learn more at ConnieWillis.com, even if you sign up for my newsletter as well. And in the future, I'll have Mr. Dr. Jeffrey Long visiting me on my show too, as that's always fun. So he is the largest near-death experience study in history is what he held, involving 3,000 people, diverse backgrounds, religious traditions, including non-believers. And he's going to be telling us a little bit deeper about some of these things in a few minutes. But I have some more questions for you that I personally want to know, because I know you were talking about at one point free will, where we have free will all the time. However, so talk about what you know, what you've learned about that, but also the second part of that is free will when it comes to coming back or not.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fascinating to me, Connie, that over and over we have quotes in near-death experiences where people have gotten very direct information during their near-death experience about free will. And it's not just the near-death experiencer's free will, it's free will for everybody worldwide. Near-death experiences have shared, and this is straight quotes from their experiences, I felt like it's all about free will, or the one law that will never change is the law of free will, the one law that lasts. And then finally, another near-death experiencer said, we are products of our own choices, our free will. So over and over, literally by the scores, we have people in getting this important information, very relevant for each and every one of us in our earthly life, and exciting, too, to have that kind of validation that the decisions we make, what we choose to do, really is ultimately our own free will choice. So that's exciting.
Did when you're on the other side, have some people wanted to totally stay, and they're like, no, you got more to do, and they're like fighting it? So to me, that would be like, oh, wait a minute, my free will is I want to stay.
That's a great question. We had somebody heroically review the literally thousands of near-death experiences on the website, and their goal was to explore what we see over and over again, and that being, again, while on the other side, near-death experiencers at the end of their near-death experience being told language like, it's not your time, you have more to do, you have more work to do. And interestingly, this study, the huge study that was recently completed, by the way, this is, you're the first in the world, you and all your listeners, to hear the results of this study. Amazingly, worldwide, about 10 to 12% of near-death experiencers have, at the end of their experience, that kind of information. I mean, it's just amazing to me. Here they're being told that while they could stay in that beautiful, unearthly, blissful, loving realm, earthly life seems to be so important that they're being sent back because they have more to do, because they have more life to live. And the interesting thing about this study, Connie, is that this was from all around the world, even in non-Western countries. That same concept was universal wherever on the planet you are. And so as a result of that, we're back to that free will. We seem to not only have the free will to choose what we do in our life, but there seems to be a direction from the other side. Now, I want to emphasize that when they're told to come back, you have more work to do, there's things left in your life, language like that, almost never are the near-death experiencers told specifically what to do. They're not told to go build an ark. They're not told what.
Man, come on. What good is that?
Yeah, I know.
Tell us.
Early in my study of near-death experiences, that made me nuts. I'm going, well, come on. What's important? What are we supposed to do? And finally, after having this hundreds and hundreds of times, with near-death experiences out of the 4,000 that are on the website. Is okay.
Did you
I get
shake
that.
them?
Yeah,
Did you,
yeah.
Jeff? Come
I
on.
think they know what they're doing on the other side. Okay, I get it. So if we have free will, that might potentially interfere if we're given direction or told what to do. So again, sort of that exciting concept, and yet another significant line of reality of near-death experience is that critical spiritual concept that our lives are that meaningful, that we come back, that there's more to do on this earth, that it's important, that our work isn't complete during a near-death experience is fascinating.
You may laugh at this or you may not. I don't know. I hope you laugh at this, but it's pretty serious too. But I was having a surgery, and the anesthesiologist was talking to me ahead of time, and she introduced herself to me. And I don't know if that's normal or not. I guess so. But it was right before it happened. I know they usually meet you the day before or something like that, if I remember correctly. Maybe it's always different, but I met her. She was talking away. We were having a good time talking. And I said, little old me going, hey, do you think you can take me to right there at the light? I just want to go right to the light. I just want to step over enough to get some psychic abilities and then come back. Just make sure I come back, but please, can you get me to the light? She did not like that at all. She thought it was crazy, but she didn't like that at all. But I was serious.
Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Hey, I did laugh. That's good.
Good.
When you talk to anesthesiologists, just don't call them gas passers. But yeah, that would be interesting. I mean, and I'm sure she didn't like that at all. But
she didn't talk to me anymore. She did.
Okay,
She gave me a dirty look and walked on.
Started the anesthesia right away there, Connie. But
I was totally serious. In fact, that's my next question to you is, how many people come back and you've noticed that they do have some sort of psychic abilities?
Oh, we see that quite commonly. In fact, it's a survey question that we've asked our literally thousands of near-death experiencers, that being, did you have any psychic or paranormal gifts after your near-death experience? And well over half of the people surveyed say, yes, we did. And it's all over the board. They can be increasingly intuitive. They can be increasingly, a whole array of psychic phenomena have been described as part of that. What we call.
Are you cooking dinner over there while we're talking? Are you cooking dinner over there? Is that what's going on?
You know what? My two dogs came running downstairs because they were aware that I'm here. We got a German Shepherd and a Dutch Shepherd, and they decided to come visit me. So, hey, we were talking earlier about pets in the afterlife. So just to reinforce that, here's two dogs, but they're still very alive and active.
I love that. I'm sorry. It's radio. When you hear those little things, you got to know, what is that? What's going on over there? What's happening?
Well, the dog came down, saw me, and actually was kind enough to bring a ball.
Oh, well, there, you got to throw it. Go ahead and throw it. I understand.
Okay.
So it's interesting. The people you said, what's the percentage that you all found out that?
Yeah, it's well over half of the people have the this variety of psychic phenomena, and again, fascinating, can certainly be a significant change in their life afterwards.
And that's the people that recognize it and admit to it. So there could be more, and maybe they didn't recognize it yet, even.
And that's a really good point. I think the change is maybe gradual. Sometimes, in fact, often it takes years after their near-death experience to fully integrate those major changes that occur. And so they could have a slow progression of being increasingly psychic over years even, and just not recognize it because, their psychic ability today seems about like the way it was yesterday or a week ago. And yet other people with them will say, hey, you're more intuitive. It's almost like, it's like we share a brain. You know what I'm going to say. You know when the phone's going to ring. You have that sort of intuitive, psychic sixth sense that you didn't have before. And you can hear that sometimes, if not from the near-death experiencers, the people close to them in their lives.
I think it's amazing when people can, play Beethoven or something on the piano all of a sudden. Where'd this come from? Yeah. I don't know. I'm 68. I don't know what's going on.
Absolutely. Very famous near-death experiencer coming back with, there's just seemingly no end how those changes can be after the near-death experience, but so often very profound, right? We had a very prominent near-death experiencer came back and was an accomplished piano player and had no interest in that before. Just one more example of those kind of amazing psychic, if you will, changes that occur after an experience.
Well, when they're told to go back, you got more to do. Does that look more like, you say free will, but then is it fate? Is it destiny? Because if you've got more to do, was that your free will to still do that or not? But you're being taken back to do that. So free will, fate, destiny. What would the other thoughts be? Or is it also, hey, I was here before, and before I decided to come back to Earth again, I decided I was going to do 5 things, and I haven't done those 5 things yet.
Yeah, bingo. It's what you just said at the end there. I think it's what's going on. Near-death experiences don't point, at least in general, to a fixed fate. In other words, there seems to be the ability through free will, through the meaning and purpose of our earthly lives that we can choose, that we can decide what we want to do, and then live either for good or for ill, those choices we make in our life. But over and over, there's a huge amount of evidence from near-death experiences that we actually existed as very conscious entities in that unearthly heavenly realm prior to coming here on earthly life. At that point in time, as near-death experiencers over and over describe, consciousness is greatly accelerated. We're, if you will, much smarter, much more conscious, much more aware in that, if you will, spiritual consciousness prior to coming to Earth. And in that consciousness, we were able to decide, well, number one, to come to our earthly life and live an earthly life here. But number two, often perhaps some ideas about, in general, what that earthly life might be. And so that seems to be, if you will, agreements or made before we come to our earthly life, or, it might be, something that is important for our individual spiritual growth on the other side. We have certain things to experience, and while we're not directed as to what to do in our earthly life, we certainly have some guiding principles. The reality of an afterlife, the reality we hear over and over of the importance of love, and certainly, as we've been discussing, the concept of free will.
Jeff, it's so nice to talk to someone that's got a PhD, that works as you do, the education, and you'll talk about past lives, regression, near death, what's on the other side, psychic abilities. I could talk to, I have a neighbor, I believe he's an anesthesiologist assistant. I am absolutely sure if I said something to him about this, he would just turn and walk away.
That's so sad.
It is. Oh. It is. I know professors that will hide it if they even think something. But they walk away, and I met a doctor at lunch at one point. I'm just eating lunch. She's sitting next to me. We start talking, and she went to Yale, and she was just talking about what all she knew. And I said at one point, finally, I said, "Do you want to know what I do?" Because she talked the whole time about her stuff, and I'm listening. I'm good. But as soon as I told her, she asked for the check, and she was ready to leave. And she kept telling me to do my homework. And before she left, before she hit the doors, I walked over to her and I said, "Hey, before you leave, do your homework on what I'm telling you."
Oh, absolutely. That really makes a difference. It's so sad. I mean, gosh, Connie, listen to what we're talking about here. I mean, this is absolutely amazing. Strong, powerful evidence that we don't really die, that there's life after death, that there's a wonderful afterlife for all of us. I mean, amazing evidence, amazingly powerfully positive messages. You'd think people would at least want to check it out. And I think good gosh. But the good news is shows like you do, Connie, your outreach to the world in a wide variety of ways through your podcast and everything, it's making a difference.
Good.
There's a major survey done by what's called Pew Forum, and in 2021, a survey they did about what people thought about the afterlife had the amazing statistic that 72% of Americans actually believed that near-death experiences were an actual soul departing from the physical body. We're getting the word out. People are listening. People are understanding. and are literally the significant majority of people in America now believe that near-death experiences are real. So, shows like this, it's making a difference.
So I got to ask you this: what do you know that's on the other side? Are you like angels, aliens? Are you open to all that kind of thing?
Well, that's what, again, having studied 4,000 near-death experiences, I've seen all that. People, angels have been described. They typically, at least the great majority, don't have wings. They're sort of not like a sort of a classic appearance, and yet they are, in a very real sense, what's important about angels. They're profoundly loving. They're there for the other person. There can be dialogues, interactions. So very dramatic and very beautiful descriptions of encountering beings on the other side, which many near-death experiencers call angels. So that's certainly an important part of near-death experiences.
I'm not sure of your background when it comes to spirituality or religious, or do you see any, like in the Bible, are you seeing like, oh my gosh, what we saw here fits this, what we saw here fits that? Anything like that?
Absolutely, over and over. First and foremost, I respect everybody's spiritual path, whatever it might be. And I've seen a lot of different people on different walks of life, but we're all, I think, going in the same direction. Actually, one near-death experiencer asked, on the other side, met what he described as God, and asked about religions, and was shown a mountain where people were climbing up the mountain, but they were climbing up different sides of the mountain. And the point that was trying to be made to this person during their near-death experiences, we're all on the same spiritual path. We're all going toward that top of the mountain, even if we're not aware of other people. But at the end, we're all the same. We're up at the top. There's the same destination of our journey, that spiritual home. So I'm very interested, certainly, in the Bible. Actually, I was asked to write a foreword for a major sort of religious publication called Guideposts, and I actually wrote about love in near-death experiences. And throughout the Bible, many, many beautiful quotes about love, many, many beautiful quotes about love from people that had near-death experiences. So again, it's always kind of a moment when you realize just how it all seems to fit together, whatever the journey we have or whatever our belief system is.
Love, even here, it's the only thing that's real. It's not fabricated. It is not man-made. It's the one thing that is real here. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And in fact, in my survey of 834 near-death experiencers for our most recent version of the survey, hey, Connie, I asked them directly, did you, during your experience, encounter any information or awareness about love? And it was like close to 60% said yes. And then the narrative response to that question just about knocked me out of my chair. I mean, over and over, love they encountered on the other side that's beyond anything they knew on earth, the only force that's real. It's the glue that holds the universe together. I mean, just profound insights about love from near-death experiencers.
Oh, I'm going to ask you more about that when we come back. I love that. I love hearing that. Dr. Jeffrey Long is with us. Connie Willis here.